Princess Lyra of the Xerthian Empire was unlike any other member of her royal family. She was brilliant, clever, and fiercely competitive. The Xerthians were known across the galaxy for their intelligence, technology, and elegance. Lyra's family ruled the empire from a palace that floated among the stars, a magnificent structure of gleaming metal and light, surrounded by countless other floating platforms where scholars, diplomats, and nobles gathered. But Lyra did not care for titles or appearances. She cared about challenges and victories. On this day, the grand hall of the palace was crowded. Alien nobles of all shapes and sizes had gathered to watch a special event, a high-stakes intellectual competition. Lyra's rival, Lord Selvar, a cunning and ambitious noble, had challenged her to a contest of logic, strategy, and wit. The wager was simple. The winner would gain a priceless artifact, a crystal that could manipulate energy, but the loser would face an unusual punishment. The hall buzzed with excitement as the contestants prepared. Lyra stood tall, her long silver hair flowing behind her. Her eyes sparkled with confidence. "I have studied every puzzle, every riddle, and every test of skill in the archives," she whispered to herself. "I will not lose." Selvar, on the other hand, smiled with quiet confidence. "Do not underestimate me, princess," he said. His eyes gleamed with mischief. "I have tricks you cannot imagine." The contest began. The puzzles were displayed in floating holograms, shifting and changing faster than the eye could follow. Lyra's mind worked like lightning. She solved problem after problem with speed and precision, her fingers dancing over the controls of the holographic interface. The audience gasped in admiration at her skill. Selvar struggled at first, but then he smiled. He had prepared a secret trick, something Lyra had never seen before. As the final puzzle appeared, it seemed simple at first glance, a sequence of symbols that needed to be arranged in order. Lyra worked quickly, confident that she was the first to solve it. But when the hologram flickered, it revealed a hidden layer she had missed. Selvar had anticipated her every move. In a shocking twist, he solved the hidden puzzle before she did. The hall went silent. Even the most experienced nobles were surprised. Lyra's fingers froze. "Impossible," she whispered. She had studied every possibility, every angle, yet she had been outsmarted. The judges confirmed the result. Lyra had lost. A cold wave of disbelief washed over her. Losing was one thing, but the punishment for losing this particular wager was written into Xerthian law. It was unusual, even shocking. The law stated that any Xerthian who lost such a contest must marry a member of a species considered lesser as a lesson in humility. And in this case, that species was human. Lyra's heart pounded. Humans? The primitive species from a small blue planet far away. The thought was absurd, even insulting. Her mind raced. "There must be some mistake," she said. "I am a princess. Of the Xerthians, I will not." The chief judge raised a hand. His tone was calm but firm. "The law is clear, Princess Lyra. The human has been chosen. You are to wed him as punishment for losing the wager. This union will be binding according to our customs," the nobles in the hall murmured. Some hid their amusement, others their curiosity. Lyra's face burned with humiliation. She could not believe that her life had taken such a sudden and strange turn. She had faced countless challenges in her life, but nothing like this. Meanwhile, in the distant star system of Earth, Commander Jason Cade was enjoying a quiet moment on his spaceship. He had been on countless missions, exploring uncharted worlds, negotiating with alien species, and defending his people from dangers across the galaxy. Humans were often underestimated by advanced civilizations, but Jason had learned to survive, adapt and thrive wherever he went. A sudden message arrived on his communicator. It was formal, urgent, and completely unexpected. "Commander Jason Cade," the voice said, "you are summoned to the Xerthian capital. You are to wed Princess Lyra as decreed by Xerthian law." Jason stared at the screen in disbelief. "What? That has to be a mistake," he muttered. "A wedding? With an alien princess and as punishment? He shook his head, but the summons was official, leaving no room for argument. Within days, he would be transported across the stars to the Zerthian palace. Back on the floating palace, Lyra prepared herself for the arrival of the human. She wore the ceremonial robes of her people, designed to show elegance, power, and status. Yet even as she presented herself to the court, anger and frustration simmered beneath the surface. How could she be forced to marry a human? She had faced cunning rivals, powerful enemies, and impossible challenges, but this felt like a humiliation beyond measure. When Jason arrived, he was unlike anything Lyra had expected. Tall, confident, and calm, he carried himself with a quiet dignity. His eyes held intelligence and curiosity, not fear. The Zerthians regarded humans as primitive, fragile, and weak, but here stood one who seemed neither weak nor afraid. The initial meeting was tense. Lyra treated him with caution, her pride and irritation clear in every gesture. Jason, however, was polite and respectful. He bowed slightly, acknowledging her status while maintaining his own dignity. "I suppose we are to wed?" Lyra asked, her voice controlled but cold. Jason nodded. "According to your law, yes. But I intend to honor it with respect, not fear. I hope we can understand each other." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Understand each other? Do you realize what this means? You are not like my people. You will never—" "Never what?" Jason asked calmly. "I am human, that is true. But humans have survived, adapted, and thrived in ways many civilizations never expected. I hope to prove that to you, Princess." The words were simple, yet there was a confidence in them that unsettled Lyra. She had expected fear, weakness, perhaps even desperation, but Jason seemed neither afraid nor inferior. Over the next few days, Lyra and Jason were forced to spend time together. They attended ceremonies, studied alien customs, and participated in public events. Lyra tried to keep her distance, to assert her superiority, and to remind everyone that the marriage was a punishment, not a choice. Jason remained, polite, observant, and patient, never pushing boundaries but never backing down either. Slowly, Lyra noticed things she had not expected. Jason's clever solutions to minor problems, his ability to read situations quickly, and his calm courage in difficult moments made her reconsider her assumptions about humans. He was not weak. He was resourceful. He was impressive. And yet, she could not admit it. Not yet. Pride, honor, and centuries of cultural bias made it impossible for her to show admiration openly. She maintained her sharp wit and sarcasm, but beneath it, a small part of her mind was curious. Could a human truly match a Zerthian in intellect and courage? Could he perhaps even surpass some of her people in unexpected ways? For Jason, every interaction was a lesson in patience, diplomacy, and observation. He respected Lyra's intelligence and status, never taking advantage of her situation. He understood the political and cultural stakes, and he worked quietly to show that humans were capable of more than the Zerthians believed. By the end of the first week, the palace began to change subtly. Whispers of admiration for Jason's abilities circulated. Lyra's guarded expressions sometimes softened, and she found herself thinking about him even when she tried not to. The humiliation of the wager still lingered, but it was tempered by curiosity and perhaps even a hint of respect. As they stood together in the palace's grand zero-gravity garden, Lyra watched the stars shimmer around them. She had lost a wager, and she had been forced into an unusual and humiliating situation. Yet for the first time in her life, she faced a being who challenged her assumptions, not with arrogance or malice, but with quiet skill, intelligence, and courage. The day had finally come when Commander Jason Cade would formally step foot into the Zerthian capital. Even after his first impressions from afar, nothing could have prepared him for the sheer scale of the floating palace. It hovered above a glowing nebula, casting reflections of pink, blue, and gold light across the star-filled sky. Bridges of energy connected platforms where thousands of Zerthians moved with effortless grace. Ships hovered silently, docking at hovering ports with no visible engines. Jason felt a mixture of awe and nerves as his transport approached the palace. Humans were not strangers to advanced technology, but nothing he had seen compared to this. He tightened his uniform collar and adjusted the insignia of his rank. He would need every ounce of diplomacy and composure in the days ahead. As he entered the main chamber, he was immediately struck by the Zerthian court in full display. Nobles in elegant robes of shimmering metals and flowing fabrics hovered in the air, some using anti-gravity platforms, others suspended by their own abilities. Their faces were varied and alien, some humanoid, some entirely unrecognizable, with bioluminescent skin and multiple limbs. The sheer beauty and complexity of their society was intimidating. Princess Lyra waited at the center of the chamber, her posture straight and regal, her silver hair glowing faintly under the ambient light. Her sharp eyes studied Jason carefully, as though measuring him for weaknesses. "Commander Jason Cade," the chief judge intoned, "you are here by the decree of Zerthian law. The Princess Lyra has lost the wager, and the marriage is binding. You are to live with her in the palace, and respect her position as your partner in this union." Jason bowed respectfully. "I understand," he said, keeping his tone calm but firm. "I will honor this arrangement with respect, as I have promised Princess Lyra." Lyra's lips curved in a faint, skeptical smile. "Do you really understand what this means?" she asked. "You are no ordinary partner. You are a human, and humans are fragile. You will find life here very different from your world." Jason nodded. "I am aware. But humans adapt. We learn quickly and survive in many situations. I hope I can show you that I am capable of living here, not as a burden, but as an equal." The words caused a stir among the nobles. Many had expected fear or discomfort from the human, yet Jason's composure and confidence were unusual. Whispers spread through the chamber. He might not be as weak as they assumed. Lyra motioned for him to follow her. The first days were filled with introductions and lessons. Jason was taught Zerthian etiquette, their customs, and the delicate rules of their court. He was careful to observe, to bow at the right times, and to speak only when necessary. Meanwhile, Lyra maintained her cool, professional distance. She showed him the floating gardens, the libraries, and the halls where Zerthian scholars conducted research far beyond human understanding. She expected him to struggle, to falter, to reveal his inferior nature. But to her surprise, Jason adapted quickly. In the zero-gravity garden, Jason floated beside her, examining the strange glowing plants. "These are amazing," he said. "On Earth we have plants that glow in the dark, but nothing like this. How do they survive in zero gravity?" Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Do you ask many questions like this?" she asked sharply. "I observe. I learn," he replied simply. "If I am to live here, I need to understand your world. I do not want to make mistakes." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Humans, she had believed, were simple and predictable, yet Jason was thoughtful, careful, and intelligent. She felt a small pang of surprise and annoyance at being impressed. Over the next few days, the palace tested their partnership in subtle ways. They attended public events where nobles watched their interactions closely. Lyra expected him to fumble with alien etiquette, yet Jason's polite demeanor and quick thinking often diffused awkward situations. During one diplomatic gathering, a group of visiting alien merchants presented a complex trade dispute. Lyra had been planning a quick dismissal, confident she could handle it alone. But Jason, observing patterns in their conversation and noticing inconsistencies, suggested a solution that even Lyra had not considered. "The human's logic is unusual," one noble whispered to another. "It is simple, yet effective." Lyra's eyes widened. She could not deny it. Jason had thought of a solution she herself had overlooked, yet she kept her pride intact, masking her admiration with a sharp tone. "Do not think that one success makes you equal to the Zerthians," she said. Jason smiled faintly. I do not seek to be equal. I seek only to learn, to understand, and to help where I can. The subtle tension between them became a quiet dance. Lyra maintained her authority and pride, while Jason remained respectful and observant. Yet, beneath the surface, a mutual curiosity grew. Lyra began to notice his resilience, his quick thinking, and his ability to remain calm in a world that would overwhelm most humans. One evening, Lyra took him to a hall filled with historical archives. Holograms of ancient Xerthian battles and discoveries floated around them. Jason studied the displays with genuine interest, asking questions that revealed his strategic mind and understanding of complex systems. You have an unusual mind for a human, Lyra admitted quietly. You see patterns others would miss. Jason shrugged. Humans survive by noticing small things, making connections, and thinking creatively. That is how we have survived on a planet far less advanced than yours. Lyra studied him for a moment, realizing he was not arrogant nor was he seeking to challenge her. He merely observed and adapted. That simple approach, she realized, was both refreshing and admirable. Yet the court was not entirely approving. Some nobles whispered that she might be humiliated by having a human partner, that Jason could never truly match a Xerthian in skill or intellect. Lyra felt a flicker of doubt, not in Jason but in herself. Could she trust a human? Could she accept that perhaps he was capable in ways her people could not predict? The days passed. Jason proved himself in small but meaningful ways, solving logistical problems, calming disputes among servants, and even saving Lyra from an embarrassing diplomatic misunderstanding. Each success, small as it seemed, chipped away at the wall she had built around herself. Still, she maintained a guarded demeanor. Pride was everything in Xerthian society, and admitting admiration, or worse, respect, could be seen as weakness. So she continued to tease him, challenge him, and test his patience. Yet every time she saw him handle situations gracefully, she felt a grudging respect that she would not openly acknowledge. One night, after a long day of lessons and ceremonies, they floated together in the zero-gravity garden again. Stars sparkled outside the transparent walls, and the glowing plants cast gentle light around them. Jason spoke quietly. "Princess Lyra," he said, "I know this marriage is not your choice. I know you may see me as inferior. But I hope in time you will see that I am here to help, not to humiliate or challenge you. I respect you and your people, and I want to learn from you as much as you may learn from me." Lyra looked at him, her pride and caution warring with a flicker of curiosity. "You are persistent," she said carefully. "Most humans would have fled by now or made mistakes that would embarrass themselves. You adapt quickly. It is almost irritating." Jason smiled faintly. "I take that as a compliment." She narrowed her eyes, but a small smile tugged at her lips. The first cracks in her pride were showing, though she refused to acknowledge them fully. The week ended with a public ceremony to formally recognize their union. The nobles watched closely, expecting awkwardness, fear, or humiliation. But what they saw was surprising. A human who stood confidently beside a princess, respectful but unafraid, adapting to a culture centuries beyond his own. Lyra felt a strange mix of emotions: annoyance, curiosity, and a hint of admiration. She did not yet like him. She did not yet trust him fully. But she was beginning to see that perhaps this human, who her people considered weak, was not as simple as she had thought. And Jason, for his part, was determined to prove that humans were more than capable, more than resilient, and more than deserving of a place among the stars. He knew this would not be easy. He knew Lyra's pride, her intelligence, and her people's expectations would test him at every step, but he was ready to face it. The palace was vast, the court was watchful, and the stars outside seemed endless. Yet, for the first time, both of them realized that this unusual marriage might not just be a punishment. It could be the beginning of something neither of them had imagined. A partnership of respect, trust, and perhaps more. Life in the Zerthian palace was unlike anything Jason Cade had ever experienced. Every day brought new lessons, not just in etiquette or alien technology, but in understanding a culture so advanced it was almost beyond comprehension. Princess Lyra, for her part, continued to keep him at arm's length, testing his patience, his intelligence, and his adaptability. The palace was a labyrinth of floating halls, gardens suspended in midair, and libraries filled with holographic knowledge. Each corridor seemed to have its own rules, and each room held its own mysteries. Jason navigated the palace with careful attention, observing not just what was allowed, but why. Zerthian society was built on subtlety, precision, and an intricate web of social rules that even Lyra herself sometimes struggled to explain. Lyra had arranged for him to join her in a series of cultural lessons. These were not ordinary classes, they were trials, designed to test a newcomer's intelligence, adaptability, and patience. The first trial took place in the Hall of Simulations, a vast chamber where Zerthian history, battles, and scenarios were recreated as interactive holograms. Jason was to navigate a complex scenario, mediating a dispute between two rival alien factions. At first, Jason felt overwhelmed. The holograms moved quickly, the factions spoke in complex Zerthian dialects, and every action had immediate consequences. But he remembered what he had learned about human problem-solving. Observe, adapt, and improvise. He watched patterns, noticed inconsistencies in the factions' arguments, and proposed solutions that seemed simple, but were effective. Lyra observed silently from above, her arms crossed. "You rely on intuition more than logic," she said, when the trial ended. "Humans often succeed by guessing. That is not how Zerthians operate." Jason shook his head. "It is not guessing. It is analyzing information in ways that may be different from your methods. Humans use creativity alongside logic." Lyra frowned. She had expected him to fail, yet he had succeeded in a scenario designed to challenge even the most skilled Zerthians. It was irritating and fascinating. The next trial was equally challenging, a diplomatic gathering in which Jason had to represent Lyra and negotiate with alien envoys. The assembly was tense. The envoys were skeptical of a human's ability to understand Zerthian customs and feared he might embarrass the princess. Jason listened carefully, asked insightful questions, and suggested compromises that addressed each envoy's concerns without offending anyone. The nobles murmured in surprise. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You are clever," she admitted quietly, though she refused to smile. Clever for a human, but clever nonetheless. Jason only nodded, respectful but confident. "I only seek to solve problems, not to impress anyone." Over the following days, Lyra and Jason were sent on a series of challenges across the palace, navigating zero-gravity gardens to locate rare medicinal plants, deciphering ancient Zerthian texts, and even piloting small anti-gravity crafts through obstacle courses. Each time, Jason adapted. He learned quickly, applied human intuition, and occasionally surprised Lyra with solutions she had never considered. One evening, while resting in the palace's observatory, Jason asked Lyra a simple question. "Princess, why are these trials so important? Is it only for my training, or are they meant for something else?" Lyra's eyes softened briefly, though she quickly masked it. "They are meant to test you, yes, but they are also a reflection. The Zerthian Council wants to see if a human can survive here, if you can truly understand our ways. It is unusual for them to consider an outsider, especially one from your species." Jason considered her words. "Then these trials are not just for me, they are for both of us. If I fail, it reflects on you as well." Lyra studied him. Humans often underestimated themselves, yet here was one who recognized responsibility, who approached challenges with thought and care. "Perhaps you are different from the others," she said softly. Their interactions began to shift, subtly but unmistakably. Lyra was still proud, still cautious, still determined to maintain control. But she noticed small things: Jason's patience, his willingness to listen, his ability to understand not just words, but intent. And she began to admire these traits, even if she would never admit it openly. One day, the palace received a crisis message. A minor trade dispute had escalated on a distant Zerthian colony. Supplies of essential minerals were being hoarded by a local governor, causing unrest among the colonists. Lyra's initial instinct was to send the palace guards and resolve the problem through intimidation. Jason, however, suggested a different approach. "We should speak directly to the colonists and understand their concerns," he said. "Force may solve the problem temporarily, but it could create resentment that lasts generations." Lyra hesitated. Humans rarely had the patience for diplomacy in situations of power. They preferred action, confrontation, or improvisation. Yet she could see the logic in his approach. She agreed to try it. Together, they traveled via teleportation to the colony. Jason observed the colonists, asking questions, listening to grievances, and noting patterns of dissatisfaction. Lyra, impressed, realized that humans could understand social dynamics in ways Zerthians sometimes overlooked. By the end of the mission, they had resolved the dispute peacefully. The colonists were satisfied, and the governor had agreed to fair distribution. Back at the palace, the council was surprised and impressed. "You have done well, human," Lyra said privately, a rare note of approval in her voice. "You think differently, and perhaps it is not entirely wrong." Jason smiled faintly. "I am glad to help, and I have learned a lot from you as well. Your methods are precise and effective. Together, we can accomplish more than either of us alone." Lyra's expression softened further, though she quickly regained her composure. Pride was difficult to abandon, yet she could not deny the truth. The human beside her was proving himself capable, not just in strength or skill, but in intelligence, adaptability, and emotional understanding. The palace life continued with small lessons in patience, trust, and understanding. Jason began to assist in minor political negotiations, often acting as a bridge between Zerthians and visiting species. His human perspective offered solutions that Zerthians overlooked, blending creativity with logic. Lyra, in turn, learned to appreciate human insight. While she remained cautious, she began to consult Jason before making decisions, testing his judgment and relying on his advice. Their relationship evolved from mere obligation to a cautious partnership. During one late-night session in the palace library, Lyra watched him solve a complex puzzle from an ancient Zerthian archive. His fingers moved confidently across the holographic interface, connecting patterns in ways she had not anticipated. "You are persistent," she said quietly, "and clever. I suppose I underestimated you." Jason looked up, meeting her gaze. "I am learning from you as much as you are learning from me. That is how we succeed, by understanding each other." Lyra considered his words, feeling something unfamiliar: respect, and perhaps the beginnings of trust. It was a small thing, subtle, but it mattered. Humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, and unfit for Zerthian society. Yet here was one who not only survived but excelled. The first cracks in her pride were showing. She would not admit it openly, not yet. But she began to see that perhaps this marriage, once a punishment in her eyes, was becoming an opportunity to learn, to grow, and maybe to understand humans in ways she had never thought possible. As the stars glittered outside the palace windows, Lyra and Jason sat side by side, two beings from different worlds learning to navigate challenges together. Each trial, each puzzle, each diplomatic challenge brought them closer, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as partners. And for the first time, Lyra considered a possibility that had never crossed her mind before. Perhaps the human at her side was not a punishment, but a key to something greater, a partnership that could change not just their lives, but the very way humans were seen among the stars. Life in the Zerthian palace had begun to settle into a strange rhythm for Princess Lyra and Commander Jason Cade. The trials and lessons had taught them patience, mutual respect and understanding. Yet neither could anticipate the challenge that was about to strike, a danger that would test them not as students but as partners, and show the true strength of human ingenuity alongside Xerthian skill. The warning came abruptly. The palace communication system lit up with urgent alerts. A group of alien mercenaries, notorious across several star systems, had attacked a mining colony near the edge of Xerthian space. The colony contained essential resources, rare minerals vital for both Xerthian and human technology. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving the colony in chaos and threatening countless lives. Lyra immediately convened the council. The nobles debated defensive strategies, most favoring large fleets and overwhelming force to crush the attackers. Lyra's mind raced. She could see the logic, but there was risk in waiting for reinforcements. Innocent colonists could die. Jason, standing beside her, spoke carefully. We cannot simply rely on force. The mercenaries are fast, organized, and dangerous. We need a strategy that combines speed, intelligence, and precision. I believe humans can contribute in ways your fleets cannot, the council murmured. Humans were clever, yes, but untested in large-scale interstellar conflict. Lyra, however, understood what he meant. She had seen Jason's intelligence, resourcefulness, and courage firsthand. Despite herself, she trusted him. Then we do it your way, human, she said firmly. We act now, not tomorrow. Show me what you can do. Jason nodded. First, we gather intelligence. We need to know the mercenaries' numbers, their patterns, and their weaknesses. Then we plan a targeted operation. Lyra's eyes narrowed. And you intend to involve humans directly in combat? Many in the council will oppose this. Jason smiled faintly. I only intend to use humans where they excel. Creativity, flexibility, and improvisation. They can complement your advanced fleets. The preparations began immediately. Lyra and Jason studied the colony's layout, the mercenaries' previous attacks, and the orbital maps. Jason suggested unconventional approaches, sending small teams in stealth craft to disable critical systems, creating distractions, and using knowledge of human tactics combined with Xerthian technology. Lyra initially hesitated. These methods were untested in the field, even among Xerthians. But she had learned to trust Jason's instincts. Very well, she said. We proceed. The journey to the colony was tense. Jason piloted a human-style stealth craft adapted with Xerthian technology, while Lyra coordinated the larger fleet from orbit. They moved swiftly, using unconventional maneuvers that surprised even the mercenaries. When they arrived, chaos reigned. Buildings were on fire, ships disabled, and colonists panicking. Jason and Lyra landed near the command center, ready to execute their plan. Jason quickly assessed the situation. The mercenaries have predictable routines. If we move now, we can disable their main weapons before they notice. Lyra nodded, impressed. You see what they do not. Humans truly observe differently. Together, they led small squads combining stealth, strategy, and human improvisation with Xerthian technology. Jason directed humans to reroute power systems, block enemy communications, and create diversions. Lyra coordinated her forces, using precise maneuvers and Xerthian tech to disable the mercenary ships without unnecessary destruction. During the operation, they faced unexpected danger. A mercenary leader confronted them directly, wielding advanced weaponry designed to overwhelm Xerthian defenses. Lyra was momentarily caught off guard. Jason reacted instantly, using a simple but clever human tactic. He distracted the leader while Lyra disabled the weapon system. Working together, they neutralized the threat. The operation continued smoothly after that, with Jason's ingenuity and Lyra's precision complementing each other perfectly. By the time the fleet arrived for reinforcement, the mercenaries were already disorganized, their resources crippled, and the colonists safe. Back at the palace, the council was astonished. Reports highlighted how a human had helped save lives, prevent destruction, and contribute strategies that Xerthians had not considered. Whispers spread. Perhaps humans were more capable than anyone had believed. Lyra turned to Jason privately. You did well. Not just for a human, but period. You saved many lives today. Jason smiled modestly. I only did what I could, and I could not have done it without your coordination and trust. You are brave, strategic, and precise. Together, we made it work. For Lyra, hearing such words was unusual. She had always believed Zerthians were superior in every aspect: strategy, intelligence, strength. Yet here was a human standing beside her, showing courage, creativity, and moral clarity. She could not deny it. Humans had potential she had never fully appreciated. In the days following the attack, Lyra and Jason continued to work together. They repaired the colony, ensured fair distribution of resources, and established communication between the colonists and the Zerthian Council. Their teamwork became a model for what humans and Zerthians could achieve together. Even within the palace, attitudes began to shift. Some nobles whispered in admiration, others in cautious skepticism, but no one could deny the humans' contributions. Lyra, for her part, found herself thinking about him more often, considering his ideas and even seeking his advice before making decisions. One evening, after the crisis had passed, they returned to the zero-gravity garden. Stars sparkled outside the transparent walls, and glowing plants reflected their light. You have changed the way I see humans, Lyra said softly. I thought they were simple, fragile, incapable. But you are more than I expected. Jason looked at her, calm and steady. I am glad I could show you. But I am only one human. There are many more like me, curious, clever, brave. Humans have survived in ways your species cannot imagine, on a planet that gave them nothing but challenges. Lyra considered this. She had spent centuries believing in Zerthian superiority, in the rigid hierarchy of intelligence and skill. Yet here was proof that humans could adapt, innovate, and even exceed expectations in critical situations. I suppose, perhaps the law that forced us together was not entirely cruel, she admitted quietly. It brought me face to face with something I would have ignored otherwise. A human, capable, resourceful, and courageous. Jason smiled. And I am grateful for the chance to learn from you. You taught me not just about Zerthian culture, but about strategy, honor, and leadership. Together, we can accomplish more than either of us could alone. The palace felt unusually peaceful that night. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, a reminder of the vast universe beyond their walls. Inside, two beings from different worlds had discovered something rare: trust, respect, and the beginnings of a partnership that could change the galaxy. For Lyra, the human at her side was no longer just a punishment. He was a partner, a comrade, and perhaps in ways she was only beginning to understand, something more. And for Jason, the princess was no longer a distant, untouchable figure. She was a brilliant strategist, a courageous leader, and a person worth learning from and protecting. Together, they faced not only the challenges of a complex palace and an alien court, but also the greater dangers of the galaxy itself. The human and the princess had proven that when different species worked together, combining their strengths, they could achieve what neither could accomplish alone. The day of the wedding arrived with the grandness that only a Zerthian palace could create. The floating halls shimmered with golden light, reflecting against the stars and nebulae beyond. Nobles, dignitaries, and representatives from countless species gathered to witness the union of Princess Lyra and Commander Jason Cade, a human whose intelligence, courage, and ingenuity had earned him respect across the palace. Lyra prepared herself in ceremonial robes, their flowing design adorned with the colors of her family and the symbols of the Zerthian Empire. Every movement, every gesture was deliberate, showcasing the grace and authority she had been trained to maintain since childhood. But beneath the calm exterior, she felt a mixture of pride, anticipation, and a strange new emotion: affection. Jason, in his formal uniform adapted for the occasion, stood patiently nearby. He had never imagined being a part of such an elaborate ceremony. His heart raced not out of fear but out of respect for the responsibility he was about to take on. He had faced dangers, challenges, and alien courts before, but standing beside a princess about to make a life-altering vow was unlike anything else. The ceremony hall was magnificent. Floating lights created soft patterns across the walls. Holographic tapestries told the story of the Zerthian lineage, and the council sat in solemn judgment, observing every detail. The air hummed with anticipation as the gathered audience whispered and speculated. Many were curious about the human's role, while others wondered if the princess would accept this union fully. Lyra stepped forward first, her steps graceful and confident. She glanced at Jason, her silver eyes meeting his steady, calm gaze. She saw in him not a human to pity, not a punishment to endure, but a partner, someone whose intelligence, courage, and morality had proven equal to, and in some ways even, exceeded her expectations. Jason returned her look with quiet respect. "Princess Lyra," he said softly, "I stand here ready to honor this union, not as a punishment for you, but as a choice to build something greater together." Lyra's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Then we are agreed," she replied. "Together, as equals, we will face what comes next." The ceremony began with the ancient words of the Zerthian tradition. Symbols of unity, commitment, and trust floated around them in glowing holograms. Jason and Lyra recited vows, pledging mutual respect, partnership, and loyalty. The nobles watched in quiet awe. The human had adapted to the Zerthian ways, yet he had brought his own integrity and understanding to the union. When the final words were spoken, the council pronounced them officially united. Lyra and Jason clasped hands, and a gentle light surrounded them, signifying not only the marriage but the symbolic bond between their species. Gasps of admiration spread through the hall. This was not just a union of two individuals, but of two worlds learning to recognize each other's worth. After the ceremony, the celebrations began. Feasts were prepared, with foods from both Zerthian culture and Earth, carefully combined to honor both worlds. Aliens of every shape and size mingled with human delegates, laughter and music filling the palace corridors. Lyra and Jason moved through the crowd together, a united pair, their presence commanding respect and attention. The first moments alone after the ceremony were quiet. Lyra and Jason floated together in a small garden where soft lights glimmered over zero-gravity flowers. "I admit," Lyra said quietly, "I did not expect this. I did not expect to respect you, or to see what humans can truly do." Jason smiled. "I understand. And I did not expect to find such a remarkable ally, a teacher, and a friend in a princess. Your people are extraordinary, and you are extraordinary among them." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a recognition that humans and Zerthians, despite differences, could share understanding, courage, and loyalty. "Perhaps this is only the beginning," she said. Jason nodded. "It is. Together we can face challenges no one else could. We can build bridges, protect lives, and prove that humans are more than capable in the galaxy." Over the following weeks, life continued in the palace. Jason took on a formal role in advising the council, offering insights from his unique perspective. Lyra continued her duties as princess, but now with a partner she trusted implicitly. They faced political disputes, trade negotiations, and new challenges in a galaxy that was far from peaceful. Humans, once underestimated, began to gain recognition. News of Jason's actions during the mercenary crisis spread across systems. Other human explorers and diplomats were welcomed with newfound respect. Lyra's support and public acknowledgement of his abilities helped shift perceptions of humanity, showing that courage, intelligence, and moral clarity were not bound to one species. One day, as they walked together through the palace's observatory, Lyra paused to look at the stars. "Do you ever think about home?" she asked. "Earth, I mean." Jason nodded. "Every day. But I think of this as home too now. And not just because I am here, but because we are building something together. Humans can survive and thrive anywhere, but we also learn from others. From you, I have learned patience, precision, and trust. Lyra considered this. And I have learned not to underestimate anyone, not to assume that only Xerthians can solve our problems. You have shown me that humans have creativity and courage in ways my people did not expect. There was a silence between them, comfortable and quiet, filled with mutual understanding. The stars outside stretched endlessly, reflecting the possibilities that lay ahead. They were partners now, not by law or punishment, but by choice and respect. As time passed, their partnership strengthened. They faced threats from pirates, political rivals, and natural disasters, and each challenge tested their skills, trust, and creativity. Jason's human intuition and adaptability complemented Lyra's strategic brilliance and technological mastery. Together, they solved problems that neither could have faced alone. The Xerthian Council, once skeptical, now recognized the value of humans in ways they had never considered. They began advocating for broader cooperation with Earth, acknowledging that humans were capable allies in a complex galaxy. Lyra and Jason became symbols of this new era. Their marriage was no longer seen as a punishment or an anomaly, but as a partnership of equals, proof that strength, intelligence, and courage were not limited to a single species. One evening, as they stood in the palace garden watching the nebula glow in the distance, Lyra turned to Jason. "I suppose in a strange way, losing that wager was fortunate," she said with a small smile. "It brought me to you, and it made me see humans in a way I never thought possible." Jason took her hand. "And I am grateful for the opportunity, not just to learn from you, but to build something new together, to show the galaxy what humans and Xerthians can accomplish when we work together." Lyra nodded. "Then let us continue this journey, not as a punishment, but as partners, equals, friends, perhaps more." The stars outside shimmered vast and endless. The galaxy stretched before them, full of dangers, opportunities, and discoveries. But for Lyra and Jason, there was confidence, trust, and partnership. Together, they could face whatever came next. The palace lights dimmed as the celebration continued inside, but the two of them remained outside, floating gently among zero-gravity flowers, hand in hand. They had faced trials, danger, and cultural divides and emerged stronger, wiser, and united. The story of a human and an alien princess was no longer one of punishment or humiliation. It was a story of mutual respect, courage, and the limitless potential of collaboration. Humanity had proven itself not just to Lyra, but to the Xerthian Empire and the galaxy beyond. And as they looked toward the stars, side by side, they knew that the adventure was only beginning. Together they would explore new worlds, face new challenges, and continue to redefine what it meant for humans to stand proudly among the stars. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous. But for Lyra and Jason, it was a place of possibility, partnership, and hope, and they would face it together.